surreal. And then I think what really, you know, I loved Leo, but when Leo called, what happened was the linchpin was I got a call at about 11:30 on a Friday night from Scotty saying, Leo has Scorsese, says he's going to do it. I was like,
Yeah, how do you say no?
how do I say no to that? They just done Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
Departed.
Yeah, they just won the Oscar.
They just won
6
the
months
Oscar.
earlier.
I always love. I was like, this.
Yeah.
I was like, this can't even. Is this really happening? I mean, it's so surreal, the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And then so he sold it. Next day, it's announced the bidding war. So my book sells all over the world because of that, right? And then you write this script in like 4 hours. It seemed like literally, it was the craziest thing.
Right.
But you write this like perfect first draft. Like Scott's like, listen, you know, this is gonna take take like 2 years to get the script done because I'll have to go through 84 drafts and everyone's gonna hate it and you go through 5 writers, whatever. But at least we got them
You're
in.
off and running. Yeah.
Right, we're off and running, right? And then you write this script, and from the first word, I was like, oh, I couldn't believe it. Like when I read that, it was just so amazing because I actually thought about writing the script myself,
right?
And I made it like I don't want to do it. It's like because it's a different art form. This is
a whole different set of muscles.
It's not even like I don't have time to learn that, but it was so amazing what you did. And then everyone loves the script, and it gets like green. I get a call.
Yeah,
it's greenlit. It's going. There we go. And then. It was a combination of the writer's strike happened, and the writer's strike came.
Right.
Marty wanted too much. It was like a whole thing. It was a budgetary issue.
It was the content. I think Warner Brothers was very, very skittish about the content. They bought the book sight unseen without, they had just done The Departed. Marty wanted it, said, great, we'll buy it. Right. I think ultimately when Warner Brothers or whoever was running Warner Brothers at the time read it, they were kind of horrified. Like, oh my God, this sex. Alan Horn. Sex, drugs, cocaine, white collar crime, everything, you know, and I think that kind of slowed things down. So suddenly everything that was all systems go was dragging on. The writer's strike was looming.
Right. And
Marty, I remember, kept calling me saying, I got to go. I got to make a movie. The writer's strike's coming. And then before Warner Brothers finally decided, like, okay, we'll do it, Paramount swept in with Shutter Island. Said, here, do this, and then do Wolf next. And that killed it. And then next, Marty was like, well, I want to do
Silence.
That was the disaster. It was you go. And I said, this is dead. And what went from green light, all systems go. And like I said, I handed that script in on a Friday.
It was amazing.
On Sunday. It was Friday before Labor Day 2007. On
Everyone
Sunday,
was so shocked.
Rick Yorn called me. Rick represents Marty and Leo, said, we're going. This is their next movie. I flew to New York. I met with Marty and Leo. We had a quick meeting. Marty said, I see this as a companion piece to Goodfellas and Casino. I said, that's exactly how I want to write it. I want to do voiceover. And I went, boom, go. I had dinner with your parents. I met you for lunch. I drove out to Long Island. I drove out to your old house. I had you come in and recreate one of your speeches at CAA. I read the book. And then you were incredibly helpful during the process. I don't know if you remember, but while I was writing, I would call you, email you every day.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about this? Can you tell me about that? And then I sat down and I just
it's crazy.
17 days exactly, cranked it out and then handed it in. So it went so quick and then it just ground to a halt.
Right.
And the great thing is because friends of mine would call me and go, what's going on? I go, I don't know. And I said, they think I'm lying. I said, I know. I'm telling you, they told me they're going to do it.
It was greenlit.
It was greenlit. They were going, and Marty and Leo and the whole bit. And then there was an article, and I believe it was in the LA Times. And basically what it said was, even when you're Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio, it's still hard to get a movie done in Hollywood. Yeah. And it talked about the problems we were having. I said, fine, at least people know we're not crazy. This is actually happening.
Right.
So the whole thing faded away. Years went by. Whenever I would run into Leo at parties, whatever, he'd go, I'm making this movie. And I thought he was just being polite. And I was like, oh, that's great. He goes, no, I want to do it. I really do. And I'm going to do it. And I was like, all right, he's just trying to be nice to me. And then out of the blue, in whatever it was, 2012, 11, I get a call from these two guys I'd never heard of who said, if we buy the rights to Wolf in turnaround, which means they're going to buy it back from whoever owns it, and Warner Bros., would you still be involved? And I said, sure. And they did, and I was, and next thing we know, we're doing the movie. So, I don't know, it all worked out.
So the interesting thing is those two guys turned out to be the guys from Red Granite, which was the whole fraud of Malaysian fraud, right? I guess ultimately the irony is like, of course, it had to be fraudulent money that financed the movie.
If there was ever a movie in history that was financed with fraudulent money as a punchline, that's it. Obviously, it's not funny. I know a lot of people lost money and got hurt, but of course, you go, what, perfect.
So I remember from my perspective, there was like two versions of this. First, so Leo, for me, because it was like, you were right, it was my only thing. So what happened was when that got delayed in 2000, I was just crushed. It was like a soul crushing moment for me, right? Because I was trying to make a comeback. I didn't know what to do, right? I hated writing, but I really, it was just, I didn't know where to turn, right? So around 2008, early 2000, when the shit hit the fan with Wall Street and the GFC, I was broke. And I was like, what do I do? So I said, I love speaking. So I decided to build a speaking business around, first around just inner game, then eventually teaching sales in the straight line system, right? The stuff I did at CA, which was hysterical, right? And so I would run into Leo and he would say to me, dude, I promise you, I'm making this movie. Because what happened was my options expired. I got twice, and then you get it back. I had the project back, right? So it was like in 2010, I owned it outright again. They could only do it for 36 months, right?
Right.
And I had it again. He was like, swear to God, and he gave me his word. And he was really, and then Rick was like, Leo does not give he doesn't do any other project. This is his, and anytime one of my friends would run into Leo would be like, I'm making that movie. Like he was, same with you, right?
Yeah.
It was his passion project. And then, what happened was it was like the Marty Scorsese death effect. Marty is a double-edged sword. Because once he's so talented, and everyone has so much respect for Marty, that once he puts his name, no one's going to say, I was like, just get another director. Like, we can't.
Right.
It's Marty.
Sure.
I'm like, I don't care. I mean, it's my only, because Leo it was Marty, because Marty's very slow.
Right.
Marty will do a movie every few years.
Right.
While Leo could do one theoretically, every 6 months, every year, right?
Sure.
So the holdup was Marty, because Marty had other things, and Marty, but he wouldn't say, he wouldn't say pass.
Right.
He's like, I still want it, but not yet.
Right.
So it was in Marty hell.
Sure.
Basically Marty limbo, right? And I was just dying. But interestingly for my own, and this is great for any of you going through any difficult times. Just, I actually rewrote my own life story during the delay. And the delay turned out to be the greatest thing ever, because in the first draft ended with me in jail.
Right.
Because that was what my life was. I just got out of jail, right?
Right.
Over those years, Leo finally calls me back 4 years later. He's like, all right, we're going.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm coming over. I said, all right, here's my new address. He walks in a mansion, and he goes, what the hell happened to your life? You were broke. I said, oh, well, go out there. He goes, show me what you do. And I showed him, and he said it to Marty. They're like, holy Christ. Well, we're rewriting the whole third act of the movie, right?
Yeah, totally.
And you rewrote the whole act
the whole ending,
with the commercial and the infomercials and everything. Sure. And that, I think, is what made the movie.
Yeah, it was so much.
It made it
like rise and fall and rise again.
And rise again. I think it made it so much of a better movie, more inspiring for people, right?
Right.
So I think it goes to show you, talk about making lemons out of, lemonade out of lemons, right? So from your perspective though, right? So when it got delayed, you went on then and you just said, what am I going to do? And you Boardwalk Empire. Is that what you did?
Yeah, all I can do, as a writer, I mean, I write them and ship them, and I leave the rest of it to the producers of the world, my wife, Rick. You're in good hands. Scott and Alexander. That's their job. Get it made. Because you'll bang your head against the wall trying to figure out why isn't this happening, etc. So I just keep writing them and hope for the best. So yeah, Boardwalk Empire was right at the same time.
How many years is that? 5 or 4? 5?
5 years. Yeah. So that was.
Is that typical for
is that for a hit? Yeah, certainly for a hit show. Yeah, it could be longer. I mean, I think Grey's Anatomy is in its 14th year. Network shows can do, but for a cable show, I felt, I think when we finally got to the end of Sopranos, we felt like, or David felt that, we kind of said everything we needed to say, and Boardwalk felt the same way. I felt like, okay, I don't want to just keep this treading water just to keep it on the air. But yeah, it was great. It was, it was fantastic. I mean, Marty originally was just supposed to be involved as a producer, and he read my pilot and he called me up. He called me up. He said, I think I want to direct this. And when I picked myself out of my chair, I was like, oh my God, okay. And he said, how do we move this forward? And I said, well, there's a guy named Richard Plepler who runs HBO. If you call him and tell him what you just told me, I'm pretty sure this is moving forward. And within 5 minutes, it was greenlit, go. And we cast Steve Buscemi, which was great. And great, it's interesting. And Marty said to me early on, he said, Forget about who the real guy is, the real Nucky Johnson, who's the real guy and what he looked like. Nobody knows him anyway. Who are just actors you want to work with? Who are actors you love? And Steve was one of the first people I said, maybe the first person. And he goes, oh, I love Steve. Yeah. And we rattled off a couple other names. And I think a week later, Marty called me. He goes, I cannot stop thinking about Steve Buscemi for this. I said, I can't either. He goes, let's just do it. And I called Steve, and it was funny because we had told him about it. He was in the running. And I called Steve and I said, Steve, we want to offer you this part. And he said, oh, well, it's really nice to be considered. I said, no, we're offering it to you. He couldn't even accept. He was so convinced we were not going to give it to him. He didn't even hear me. He was like,
because it wasn't an obvious choice.
No, you would think it was going to be some, movie star, quote unquote, guy. Yeah. And Steve, but I knew I had seen every movie Steve ever did. I also saw him in a play called The Irresistible Rise of Arturo Ui, which was a play set, I think, in the 20s or 30s. So I actually saw him in those clothes once, and in those 1920s suit with a gangster hat. And I was like, he pulls this off, and he was great. And I saw everything he ever did, and I knew Steve had every possible color of human emotion and is a great actor. The other thing, my logic was, whenever I see, oh, there's a movie coming out, oh, Steve Buscemi's in it, I always think to myself, oh, well, that part's going to be good. Steve's always great. So I thought, well, he's always great. Just make him the lead. The whole thing will be great. And that was my very simple logic, but it's like it worked. Yeah. And, dream person to work with, absolute gentleman, always prepared, as the number one guy on the call sheet, sets the tone for everyone else in terms of how to behave. Just couldn't be nicer, always on time. Just that's the guy, especially if you're doing a TV series that's going to run for 5 years, sure, that's the guy you want at the helm. You want Jim Gandolfini, you want Steve, you want Bobby Cannavale, Bryan Cranston. Those are the type of people, rock solid, great people who just show up and do the job and without any drama.
I remember that when they first called me, said, we're going to let you screen it in private, like the first time. So like Alexandria, I was away on tour, and Alexandria called me. She had seen it. And she's like, your life's never going to be the same again.
Absolutely.
That's all I can promise you. Like,